Good evening, everyone. This is Susan. Give me a thumbs up or raise your hands if you can hear me clearly. I can see two hands up, so that's good. Let me just share my presentation and then we can start. So, can all of you see the presentation? Are we good? Give me another hands up or a thumbs up or just send a message on the chat box. Very good. I can see a lot of thumbs up, so that's good. So, thank you very much, everyone. Good evening, first, and thank you for joining me on this webinar where I will be discussing communication skills for industry professionals. So, there might be a lot of questions in your mind as to why is this important. I know how to talk to someone. I know how to go to a shop and buy something. I know how to ask for what I want. But why is there a separate webinar focusing on this? So can you, this is going to be an interactive session in the sense I would like you to give answers on the chat box so I can see what y'all are thinking as well, and that way I can respond to that. So yes. Thank you, Viresh. I can see hi. Thank you. So, like Viresh, I would like all of you to be a part of this webinar because, as I mentioned before, this is going to be communication, and communication is not a one-way street. It goes back and forth. A receiver and a sender has to be involved for communication to happen. So, since this is a webinar and there are a lot of people on this call, the best way to communicate would be one way y'all can tell me on the chat box whatever y'all think, and I will talk over here so y'all can listen to me and understand what this webinar is going to be about. Okay, so yes, we will start. Okay, so what you're going to learn today. So can you any of you or all of you also share on the chat box what exactly we're going to be talking about in this webinar for the next 45 minutes? What are you all expecting? I'm waiting for responses. I can only see a hi from Viresh. Just give me a one word answer. What exactly? Like some of you can say, I want to be more confident, or you can say how to communicate with people. Great, exactly. Now, how to communicate with people is still a broader term. Does anyone else have anything in mind, something more specific? When you say communication skills, I can see communication skills in the chat box. How to approach confidently for a job. Okay. How to improve ourselves to speak confidently. I love these responses because that's exactly what we're going to be discussing over here. Because professional communication, very good. How to connect with people. So all of you are uh, defining what communication is, how to connect with people. I like how we've used the word connect and not speak, right? Connection is what communication is all about because you have a receiver and a sender, and there has to be some kind of connection for the message to be relayed, right? Or the message to be conveyed. So we're just going to take a brief look at the basics of it. Yes, thank you so much for your responses. Let's continue. So basically, the definition of communication would be exchanging information between two people, two individuals, or an individual and a group, or two groups, and so on. You know the different types of communication channels that can take place, right? So communication is not just about speaking, is it? Now, I know how to speak verbally. Is that the only thing that communication is about, or does it involve other aspects as well? Can you communicate with just your facial expressions? Send a yes or a no on the chat box so I'll know what you all are thinking. Just facial expressions, no speaking, nothing. Just with facial expressions, is it possible to communicate? Yes or no? Quick, so we can move on. Very good. Someone has given the explanation. Verbal, non-verbal, written, visual communication. Oh, I see a lot of responses. No. So with just your facial expressions, you all think that it's not possible to communicate. But to be honest, it is possible to communicate without speaking also. So communication covers all these aspects. As Albert Mehrabian, a person who came up with a communication model, what he said, what he designed was the impact through words that we use to communicate is actually only 7%. So what we're speaking, the words that we're using is only 7% of our communication. The tone of our voice would be 38%. So imagine I say hi. Not very interesting, but I say hi. It's a bit more interesting and you feel more engaged. You feel like you want to listen to me speak more, right? So that's why it has 38% importance. And the rest of it, can you all guess what the rest of the 55% of communication covers or includes? Body language. Thank you very much, Dr. Kavisa. Body language is very, very important. And it has 50%, 58% of our communication. So the words are only 7%. You can say the words, but if your body language does not match the words coming out of your mouth, maybe the message you're trying to convey may not reach the receiver the way you wanted to reach them, right? For example, you can say, you look very beautiful. You can say it in different ways, right? You look very beautiful. You look very beautiful. You look very beautiful. Sarcasm, one is honestly saying it, one is just like no feelings, just saying it for the sake of saying it. So your body language, your tone, and the way in which your expressions are conveys the message more clearly. And that's exactly what communication is all about. Yes? Okay, let's continue. So what you learned today, I think you all have covered most of it. 1 second. Yes. How communication expectations change from college to workplace. So this is very, very important, especially when you are transitioning from your background of college or where you're studying to a workplace. Again, tell me a yes or a no. Can we communicate the same way as how we communicate when we are in an educational institute or wherever we are studying? Yes or no? That's all I want. Yes, can we communicate the same way? No, we can't communicate the same way. All of you are saying no. It's like all of you already know the basics of it, right? We know that we can't communicate the same way because you can't talk the same way to a manager the same way you would speak to a friend, right? Because with a friend, it is more informal, more colloquial, maybe using a little slang language as well. Not the inappropriate slang, but the kind of language you would use with a friend or a family member. But in a professional setting, that's not accepted or that's not very appropriate, right? So that's exactly what we're going to be also discussing. To be more confident, right? What's the point of knowing what to say if you are not confident? Because you want people to also trust you when you say something, and that will only come if you are confident, right? So that's something we will also discuss, how to be confident, maybe the basics. We'll just touch upon how we can be confident in a professional setting. Okay. Next, everyday tips to sound more credible and clear. Now, what is credible? And why exactly should we sound credible in a professional environment? It's because you want them to take you seriously, right? for them to take you seriously, you have to sound more credible. Basically, what you are saying, the other person should trust and feel like you know what you're talking about. So you shouldn't be doubtful about what you're saying. So being credible only adds to your professional image, and that's very important, right? Clear. What's the point of knowing everything but not being able to convey it clearly, right? So, what the other person will think is that you only know this much if you are not very clear about the knowledge that you possess, right? So, this is what bridges the gap between what the other person perceives you to be and what you already acquire or what you already have. Okay, so that's why it's very, very important to focus on your communication. Yes. Now, the next point, how to navigate common workplace situations like emails, meetings, and how to receive and give feedback. Okay. So, feedback is basically when you want to share your opinions about something, right? Be it good or bad. We usually use the word criticism, which is more of a negative term to use. Feedback is more positive because it's more constructive when you give feedback as opposed to criticizing someone. So we'll take a look at that as well. Okay, now, in one word, what is your biggest concern about workplace communication? Just in one word, send me the answer, not answer, send me your thoughts in the chat box. The biggest concern about workplace communication. What are you scared about when you think about entering the corporate world or the workplace as mentioned here? Okay, I can see. So what about it scares you? Confident is what Vikashini is saying. Yes, the confidence with which you speak. To convince, very good. How to convince the other person that what we are saying actually makes sense or to trust us. How to convince the other person to trust us, right? That is very important. So Rajat says judgment. So I'm sure a lot of you are scared of being judged at the workplace. Now that this could be a lot of things. You can be scared about them judging you about your knowledge, the knowledge that you possess, or even the way you're saying it, right? So these are different ways you can be judged at a workplace scenario. Misunderstanding, yes. A lot of you are saying that as well. Misunderstanding. We want to avoid misunderstandings because misunderstandings can lead to bigger problems. And that's not something we want to face at a workplace, right? So thank you very much for your responses. Let's move on. Why communication is a game changer. Okay. For example, you might possess all the knowledge required to do the job that you have been chosen to do. But communication is a skill that differentiates you from a good employee to a great employee. Okay, so you might possess the IQ required, right? But communication, see it as a bridge that it bridges the gap between what you possess and what the other person perceives you to be. So it's quite important to make sure that our communication is also good, or not even just good, appropriate, works in your favor, so that you, a person who has high IQ, if you think you have the knowledge and everything, and if you feel like I have the knowledge but why am I not progressing in my field or wherever I am, maybe the problem could be communication, right? Because that is the skill that bridges the gap between the two, the knowledge that you possess and what the other person perceives, right? So it's very, very important. And that's why it is a game changer. Yes. So give me a thumbs up if you all agree to what I'm saying. Or if you don't agree, also please let me know what you all think. And if you say that maybe it's not a game changer, and just possessing the knowledge is everything, it's not a wrong answer. There are no wrong answers over here. Okay. Okay, I see a lot of thumbs up, so good to know that we're all on the same page. Let's move on. What does professional communication look like? First point, clear. I have mentioned this before as well. No rambling. What do we mean by rambling? Basically, starting at one point and then just continuously talking and missing the point. Most often we use this phrase going off on a tangent, right? You start off by saying, Today we're going to speak about communication and how to be confident." And then I start off with an example. You can always, in a work environment, you can go on talking about something, and then that will cause you a lot of problems, and so on. I have gone off on a tangent. I am not sticking to the point. The point is, why are we discussing the importance of communicating well or appropriately at the workplace, right? So if you are not clear with your intentions or the purpose with which you are speaking, then it is a bit unclear, and the other person may not be able to follow you. And when they can't follow you, then you are not a very credible source to them. So that reflects on your professional image, which is why we should make sure that whatever we are trying to convey is clear. Next point, concise. Very, very important. What is concise? Concise is brief, keeping it short, right? To the point. Nobody wants to know the context that you are speaking about. Obviously, context is required, but you don't have to keep explaining it, give unnecessary details about it. For example, if someone asks you, "How is the movie?" Instead of just saying it was good, it was nice, it was fun, you'll say, this actor, actually, he was quite boring. I went with my friend and my friend fell asleep, so it was not a very nice experience. Are you answering my question? I just wanted to know how the movie was. I didn't ask you what your experience with your friend was, or what your personal experience was. My question was, how was the movie? You will either say, yes, it was good, or no, it wasn't great, right? That is to the point. Now, I'm giving very general examples. Now, in a workplace, when they ask you a question or when you want to talk about something, try to remove all the unnecessary fillers, right? Stick to the point, be clear, right? Being concise and clear are very, very important when you are communicating in a work environment. Okay, I'm moving on. Confident. Okay, confidence, it says use active voice. Active voice is a technical term. Let's look at the next part. No apologizing unnecessarily. What do we mean by no apologizing unnecessarily? Can you put it in the chat box? Give me examples of what exactly do I mean by not apologizing unnecessarily. Where do you find yourself apologizing where it's not required? Just give me an example or two. Okay, I'll go. Okay. Nervous. Prerna. So Prerna says nervous. So for example, can you give me an example as to how you will apologize? You're saying nervous, which is fair. But how exactly will you unnecessarily apologize for being nervous? Yes, starting a sentence with "I am sorry," where it's not even required. But it's a practice or a habit for us to just say, "I'm sorry." "I'm sorry if this is not clear. I'm sorry if I'm not making sense. When I'm not sure about the work," is what Rajat says. Yes, okay, you don't have to apologize for this. You can clarify, but you don't have to apologize. That makes sense. But you can always clarify, and you need to clarify when you're not sure about your work because you don't want to end up doing the wrong work, right? So make sure to ask questions. Don't feel shy to ask questions because asking questions doesn't make you a weaker person or doesn't make you someone who is not as smart or intellectual. In fact, it shows interest and it makes you look like a person who wants to learn more about whatever we are talking about. Okay? Yes, when starting a word with please. Yes. But please is again not apologizing. You can be polite and say, please, please share the document with me. Right? So that exactly won't be apologizing, but I do understand in some situations using the word please can sound like you are being apologetic, but it depends on the context. Right? Let's move on to the next part. Respectful, especially with disagreement. Now, this is something which is very, very common at a workplace, right? Imagine you are in a meeting and there is a point that is being discussed, and you don't agree with this point because you feel like there is a better approach to it, right? So instead of saying, I don't think your point makes sense, I don't think this is the good point, I don't think this will work, that makes you sound a bit impolite and rude. You don't want to sound that way in a workplace or in the work environment. You want to make sure that you are also being respectful, right? So, being respectful is very, very important. The other person should not feel like they're being dismissed of whatever they are saying. You should make them feel like you also have a suggestion and maybe it might work better. Maybe just open a channel of communication to discuss what you want to talk about. That is being respectful of the other person and also of the general environment. Okay, so that's what we mean by being respectful. Know your audience. This is very, very important. Like I mentioned before, you can't talk the same way like how you've been speaking in college, right? At the workplace, because it's very different. Unknowingly, you yourself have been communicating, knowing your audience. For example, I can't talk to all of you like I'm talking to a child. When you talk to a child, it's a bit different, right? It's a sing-song voice, and you use simpler words so that the child understands what you're saying. You know your audience, you know that's a child, you know the age group, so you speak accordingly. When you are in a professional setting, the same thing applies. You will make sure that you speak in a way that is appropriate for the environment and the audience that is present. Okay, let's move on. Language that builds confidence. Okay, so let's just take a look at the difference between weak language or weak communication and strong language or strong communication. Okay, instead of saying, I just wanted to ask, that makes you sound a bit underconfident. Okay, not very confident. See how it sounds or listen to how it sounds. Instead of saying, I just wanted to ask, you can say, I'd like to ask. Makes you sound a bit more confident. Yes, because over here you're not saying, I just wanted to ask, of all the things, I just want to know something. That's the kind of image you might be creating, right? You can be confident and say, I'd like to ask this. So the other person will know that, okay, this person knows what he or she is talking about. Sorry to bother you. Apologizing unnecessarily, right? You can say, could you help me with? Instead of saying, sorry for bothering you. I know you're busy. I'm sorry for bothering you, but just tell me how to do this. Again, that doesn't make you sound very confident. Instead, you can just say, could you please help me with this? You can add a please over there to sound more polite. Could you please help me with this? The other person also will feel like, okay, you know what you're talking about, you know what you're asking, and they'll also want to help you. Okay, you will sound more confident this way. I'm not sure, but. Okay, so someone asks you a question and you know the answer, but then you just want to be on the safer side. So you say, I'm not sure, but this is how you do it. There is no reason to say, I am not sure. right? Because you deep down inside, you are confident. The reason why someone is coming and asking you this is because they have some faith in your answer or in you or your knowledge that you possess, right? So there is no reason to say, I'm not sure. You can instead say, based on what I know. So it conveys the same message, but more confident. Does this make sense? It's a very common thing that I keep hearing now. Does this make sense? Instead of that, you can say, let me know if you'd like more details, right? Instead of saying, does this make sense? Let me know if you want to know a little bit more about it, or let me know if you have any questions. So that makes it look like you know what you're talking about. You're confident about it. And if the other person has any questions, he or she will ask you those questions. Okay, let's move on. Okay, now I want you all to do this small activity. Replace the weak phrase with a stronger one. So the weak phrase that's given is, I think we should maybe try another method. Okay, so please send the answers in the chat box. What can we write instead to sound more confident or a stronger phrase or sentence? The sentence is, I think we should maybe try another method. Like a scenario I was talking about in a meeting, you might have a better suggestion. So, how will you say it in a more confident way? How about trying another method? Okay, yes, that's a good answer. How about we try another method? Can we try this in another method? Yes. You are asking them, you are respecting them, and you are taking their suggestion and you're asking, can we try something else? Instead of saying, this is what will work, we should do this. Instead of asking, can we try? So that's a very, very nice way of asking or, just putting forth your idea. This method is good, but we can try it in another method. Okay. Yes. This also is okay, but you can be a little bit more polite. You can say, actually, this works when you say it out loud. This method is good, but can we try it in another method? You're asking them. Again, respectful, polite, good answer. Based on my experience or knowledge, how about we try another method? So over here, there's no reason to talk about your experience or knowledge. Instead of saying we try, I have another suggestion. Based on my knowledge or experience, I have another suggestion. Can we try it? That would be more apt and more polite. Shall we make a better solution for this? Yes, that also is very good. Okay, I also have some options over here. Let's take a look at that also. Thank you very much for sharing the responses. It's similar to what you all have suggested. I suggest we try a different method to see if it works better, right? So in this way, the other person also won't feel bad or disrespectful. Disrespectful. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Disrespected. Okay. Um, we should consider using another method for better efficiency. Okay. This also works and it's similar to whatever y'all have suggested. Another method might give us more accurate results. Let's explore that. Okay. So most often when we are in a meeting, right, and you do not like what is being discussed or the approach that's being discussed, we tend to forget these things. We just want to put our point across. It's always important to remember that we need to be respectful, we need to be polite in a professional setting because that adds to our professional image, and your professional image is very, very important. Okay. So these are some of the pointers to remember when we are communicating in a professional environment using assertive language. Assertive language is when you put your point across without making the other person feel like they are being disrespected, whatever we've been discussing so far, right? But you are still putting your point across. Very importantly, you are not violating another person's opinions or feelings. Okay. So remove unnecessary qualifiers like maybe, I think. Be confident. The minute you say I think, it sounds a little less confident. Okay? Focus on solutions and outcomes. Another thing, very important aspect that you should make sure you portray at the workplace is being solution oriented. You shouldn't just be the person who comes and complains about a problem. You should be the person who comes up with the solutions as well. So in your communication as well, you can focus on solutions more than the actual problem itself. Okay, let's look at some common workplace situations where your communication style can either build trust or it can cause confusion. Okay, we don't want our communication to cause confusion because it's not helping us in any way. We want it to build trust. You want people to trust you. You want to be a credible source, right? Prerna's asked the question. I will just respond to this. Is it wrong to answer in a weak format, or does it imply that we can use a strong language? So it's not wrong. See, then again, there is no right or wrong when it comes to communication. It's about what you want to portray yourself as or what you want to convey, right? So using a strong language only adds, like I mentioned, to your professional image. There's nothing that, uh, you know, using weak formats will not help your professional image. So it's not an option over here if you want to seem like someone who's confident and credible and authentic and someone who people want to depend on, right? In If you want all that to happen, you have to make sure your communication is not weak. So that would be the response to this. I hope I answered your question. Okay, so these are different workplace situations where we can focus on the way we communicate. First, emails. Okay, let's take a look at it. Use clear and specific subject lines. Subject lines are basically what you write, a summary of the mail that you send out, right? So, what is the use? Just send to me, maybe whoever, just quickly because we are also running out of time. What is the use or what is the need for a subject line? What is the purpose of a subject line? I mean, you are typing out the mail, right? So why do you have to also write a subject line? What's the need for it? I'll wait for some responses. Context. Very good. The context for quick understanding. Yes. Before opening the email, you can decide, should I open it right now? Is it important or can it wait? Right? Helps people to understand the overall context. Very good. Here is an example. Request. Review Q4 data summary. Now, with this subject line, will I be able to understand what the mail is going to be about? Yes. So you have to make sure your subject line is very clear. It shouldn't just be request review. Review data summary. If I just send review data summary, will the other person understand what the mail actually is about, what it involves? Not really. But if it's clear and concise, like this example over here, request, review Q4 data summary. It gives me an idea of what the mail is going to be about. So that is a good subject line. So make sure this is a part of your communication, especially in a professional setting. Keep paragraphs short and purposeful. So usually what happens is we tend to explain a lot. And what happens is right now, our attention span has also become shorter. We watch reels. We don't watch long format videos anymore, right? We don't watch long movies. When a movie is 3 hours, I immediately move to a movie that's 1.5 hours because our attention span is also reducing. It's always better to be clear and concise to the point. Okay. So if you have something or if you have a lot to talk about, then make sure that each paragraph only has about 3 lines and move to the next paragraph and split it into paragraphs with 3 lines. That will make it easier for the other person who is reading to understand what you're trying to convey. End with clear action items. Now I talk about, the data summary of Q4 and it's over. I just abruptly end it. It doesn't really convey my message entirely, right? So please confirm by Friday. This way, the other person knows when exactly you are expecting a response. And you also have made it clear to the other person that by Friday is when you want to see the data summary of QPO. Okay. So make sure in emails, these points are covered well. It will make your email look more professional and more confident. Okay. So here is a tip. Avoid using, just checking in. You don't need to add that. Directly get to the point. Why are you writing this email? Right? Respectfully, politely. You don't have to mention just checking in and, other fillers that you might use. Like I have been mentioning, speak briefly, clearly, confidently. So the other person knows what you're talking about. Right? Take notes to stay focused. So when you're in a meeting, make sure if something important is being discussed, make sure you take notes. Because most often we think, I'll remember it even after the meeting. When I do the task, I'll remember it. But we may not remember the details of it. And remembering the details can really help you in a professional setting. Speak up in a meeting, right? Don't be the silent one. Because if you are the silent one, you'll also be easily forgetful. Forget someone who can easily be forget. I don't know. I'm so sorry. Someone, I can easily forget you, right? If you don't talk in a meeting, you should be someone who makes your presence known, right? So for that, make a comment that's polite, that's appropriate, right? And you can also ask a question, clarifying question. You can ask, I got this point, but I had a question. If you could clarify it, that would be great. And then post your question. So that way they know you're interested as well. And that way you've also marked your presence over there. They will remember you. Oh, you know what, Susan? Yeah, she asked me a question in this meeting. I do remember that. You should be that person who other people remember. Okay. And a quick summary. So, from what I understand, we have been discussing communication and how important it is in the workplace. I have a few questions. You see how I've given a summary plus added a question as well. So, this way, you know that I've been listening and I'm actually interested in what you are speaking about, makes the other person feel good. And it's very important to make the other person feel like they are being listened to. These are just some phrases you can use to enter a conversation or, in a meeting, enter the discussion. Okay, just to add to that from my understanding. Okay, when you're receiving feedback, thanks for the feedback. I'll apply it to my next draft or my next task or my next project, whatever is the context, whatever applies to you. When you're receiving feedback, this is something that you can say. When you are giving feedback, you can say, I noticed that when you were speaking, you were using a lot of fillers. A possible improvement could be not using those fillers and being slow in the way you speak so you know confidently what you are speaking about and there is no need to use fillers in your conversation. Okay, so that way when you're giving feedback the other person also won't feel like you're criticizing, which is the negative way of telling someone they can improve. You want to give constructive feedback. You want the other person to take this and work on it, and that is our intention. Intent matters a lot when you're telling someone else on what to improve or how to improve. Okay, so these are some of the examples. Avoid using statements if someone's saying something and you for sure know it's wrong. Instead of saying that's wrong, you can say, why not try looking at it this way? I think you all have mentioned it already. So let's move on to the next part. The science of speaking with confidence. Okay, it's just not what you say, it's how you say it. So this goes back to Mehrabian's communication model. It involves everything: body language, the tone with which you speak, and the words that come out. You see, the words that come out are of least importance. So make sure your body language is appropriate, the tone that you use is appropriate, and then the words that you use is also appropriate. Okay, speak slowly. Speaking fast is not very confident. Okay, doesn't show the other person that you are very confident. Okay, let's take an example. Why it matters. Speaking too fast can make you seem nervous or unsure. Usually, when you are nervous, you tend to speak fast. So, make a conscious effort to slowly speak so you can think of what is coming next, right? So, speaking fast doesn't really help you with your confidence. Okay, example. So now I want you all to try this as well. Wherever you all are sitting, you all don't have to unmute. This is for your own, practice. Okay. Instead of saying, I kind of looked at the data and I think maybe we can change the protocol. Many things wrong about this. Maybe you're not sure of what you're saying. I kind of looked. So, what is I kind of? In a professional setting, what does that mean? I kind of looked at something and maybe I think we can change the protocol. I won't want to trust you because I don't think you're confident about what you're saying, right? Say it slowly and with control. I reviewed the data. Based on what I saw, I'd recommend adjusting the protocol. Okay. When someone comes and says this to me, I'd want to take a look at it. I'd want to see what we can review and what can we change, right? As opposed to, I kind of looked at the data and I guess we could change, maybe we can change the protocol. You're not confident about what you're saying. But if you say it, I reviewed the data based on what I saw, I'd recommend adjusting the protocol. Okay. When someone talks like this, obviously I'm going to listen to them. Pause at commas. This is the tip. Breathe at full stops. You stop at commas. Don't continue reading. Breathe at full stops because you should pause for at least 2 seconds at a full stop. Okay, you'll sound more, confident instantly. Sorry. Use pauses effectively. Okay, now this is something we can try. Okay, we ran 3 experiments. The first two were inconclusive, but the third one showed a clear pattern. Okay, now let's try to read it without the pause. Okay. We ran 3 experiments. The first two were inconclusive, but the third one showed a clear pattern. Now with the pauses. We ran 3 experiments. The first two were inconclusive, but the third one showed a clear pattern. Okay. The second one sounds a bit more believable, right? Please say yes if you all think you all agree to what I'm saying. You can say no also. It's not wrong to have your own opinions. We can discuss on that. Okay. But if you all agree to what I'm saying, you can say yes. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Okay, keep your body upright even on calls like this webinar. I don't know how many of you, I can't see you all, but you can see me. Let's just see. Your posture affects your breath and voice. Okay, let's try an example. Okay, I will read the third point. Slouching and how you're not supposed to sit. Keep your body upright even on calls. Now let me actually keep my body upright and my posture straight and say, keep your body upright even on calls. The breathing is better. The way you convey what you're saying is better. So always make sure you are sitting upright, you are standing upright, and when you speak especially. Okay? Slouching is equal to shallow breath, weak voice. Okay? So treat video calls as an in-person meeting. That is something that I think all of us know. Okay? Smile while speaking. Now, how do we smile while speaking? And why should we smile while speaking? Smiling even slightly lifts your tone and makes you sound friendly and confident. It's very important to make yourself sound approachable, especially in a work setting, right? For example, now this is something y'all can try, okay? Thanks for your time today. Now we'll try it smiling and we'll try it without smiling, but first we'll go without smiling. Thank you for your time today. You see, I don't smile. I didn't smile. I'll try that again, okay? Thanks for your time today. Now I'll try it with smiling. Thanks for your time today. You see the difference? Right? I sound more approachable when I smile and talk as opposed to saying things without smiling. You see how it changes my tone, right? So that's what we're talking about over here. Prepare go-to phrases. Sometimes we might have a very good solution in mind in a meeting and we really want to share it and discuss it, but we don't know how to enter the conversation. So look at some go-to phrases. I'd like to add a quick point over here. You can say, excuse me, I'd like to add a quick point over here, right? You smile and you say, excuse me, I'd like to add a quick point over here. Makes you sound more approachable. People want to listen to you, yes, as opposed to, I'd like to add a point over here. You see how that there's a difference in the way you sound? When you smile and say it, you sound more approachable. People want to listen to you, right? That's a great observation. Here's another angle to consider. Based on data, my suggestion would be I have a clarifying question. Instead of saying I have a question, you can just say I have a clarifying question. So the other person knows that your question is based on your doubts and not something that is going to offend them or challenge them. Okay, I'll take a look and get back to you day and time. This makes you sound more credible because you have given a day and time they can get back to you. Okay? Use people's names. Very, very important. Okay? You just meet someone for the first time. Okay? And you say, nice meeting you. You want to say the same thing, but you use their name. Nice meeting you, Priya. That way, the other person's like, oh, you remember my name. That's very nice. They will remember you as well. Use names. Even when you want to sound, no, Priya, actually, what you're saying makes sense, but I would like to give another suggestion. When you use a name like that, it sounds more confident and more credible. Okay, so try to use their names as much as possible for them to feel better in communicating with you. Start with the point and then add the detail. For example, you're going and telling your manager you want to leave. So you say actually yesterday I had a sore throat and then in the night I didn't sleep very well. I had body pain. Today morning I was running temperature. You got to the point towards the end. Instead, if you say, I'm actually running temperature and I can't come into work today. Yesterday, I noticed a few symptoms. I had a sore throat and I had body pain. And today I had a fever. That way, you are to the point, you are being concise, you are being clear. Instead of giving the details first and then getting to the point, give the point and then add a few details. That makes you sound more credible. Okay? People want to trust you. So when you send out emails, email signature, your name, your position, and the company or organization you work for. Those things should be very clear. So the other person knows who you are and why you're sending the email, where you're sending the email from. This we have already discussed. Stop over apologizing. Okay. Common mistakes to avoid, no technical jargon. Okay, because the other person may not be aware, because technical jargon can change depending on the organization, depending on the country that you belong to. So always make sure to be clear with what you're talking about. Avoid jargon. Jargon is basically, for example, I'll give you a very general example. GRWM, get ready with me. A lot of people from different places may not know what this means, but if I say LOL, for example, not everyone needs to know what LOL means, right? So you want to say, oh, that's very funny. That's what you're trying to say, right? So always make sure you are clear with what you're trying to say, because jargons can change depending on the place that you're from and the company that you're from. Don't rambling in meetings, don't just start talking. Stick to the point. Clear, concise. Saying yes to everything. Can we finish this by tomorrow? Yes, we can. But you can't. That's not the truth, right? So don't just say yes and agree to everything. Think about it. Is it possible? Is it not? Do you have a point to add? And then you say what you truly feel. Writing emails like text, I think this much we know. It's no short forms, no smileys. Make sure you follow the format and so on. Not being a part of the meeting or the conversation. Okay? Okay. So we'll just do one. Okay. We'll quickly do this. You've asked to explain a failed task. Okay? What can you say when you're asked to explain a task that failed? How exactly will you approach this? What will you say? Remember, stick to the point, concise, no over apologizing. Okay, keep all this in mind and just tell me, how can you explain a failed task? We'll see. I'm hoping that you all have some responses, after which we'll have a quick Q&A session. This task has failed currently. I'm working on how I can fix this. Yes, it's good that you added, I'm working on how I can fix this, because this shows that you are solution oriented. You're just not complaining about the problem. You are showing the other person that you are looking for solutions and you're open to look for solutions. You're just not complaining about the problem or finding excuses. Giving excuses is the worst thing that you can do in a work environment. Apologies for the failed tasks. We're working on a solution and will update you with the same. Very good. Again, shows that you are solution oriented and you want to find another approach to make this task successful. Right? Weak version is, I don't know what went wrong. I guess we messed up. Many things wrong about it. I don't know what went wrong, which means I have no interest to find out what went wrong. I guess we messed up. Just didn't work out. Makes you look a little uninterested, right? You don't want to seem like that at work, right? You want the other person or your manager to feel like you are interested in what you're doing and you are someone we can trust, right? That is very important. The task could not be completed properly or on time, unfortunately. We are currently going over to find a solution. Very good. Okay, that's exactly how you should be responding when something doesn't work in your favor. Okay, we'll move on to the end of the session. Okay, so let's look at the key takeaways. Communication is a skill and it can be learned. Okay, don't think that, oh, I can't communicate, so, it may not work. That's not what we should focus on. It's something that we can practice and learn. Small changes in language, big changes in perception. Like I said, body language, no over apologizing, all those things. Okay, corporate communication is about clarity, respect, and confidence. All that we discussed. Practice is key, so start now. Don't think that you don't know how to do it and it's too late to start. It's never too late to start practicing all these things and building your confidence. Okay, that's it from me for today. Now we'll have the Q&A session for about 5 minutes. So if you all do have any questions, please feel free to ask. So communication is the key to success based on product knowledge. Okay, I agree. Yes, communication is definitely the key to success. I didn't get the based on product knowledge part of it. If y'all have any questions related to this topic, y'all can ask now. We have about 5 minutes, like I said. No questions? I think we in the webinar, in the session, there were a lot of questions asked and a lot of points being conveyed. Apart from that, do you all have any questions? How to approach first in a group. So, from what I understand, do you mean, say, in a meeting, how do you be the first person to speak? Or could you please elaborate on that question so I can answer your question more appropriately? Ma'am, in my case, I'm confident at starting and later I feel embarrassed to ask simple questions. How to improve that? So that's what. So, like we mentioned, some phrases. I'd like to add there is a clarifying question that I have. From what I understand, these phrases will help you build your confidence. Just using these phrases will help you feel more confident. You will want to trust in yourself in this kind of a situation. So that way, your confidence will also increase and you will also seem like a more confident person. It might depend on the way people are reacting to you as well, but be sure of what you're saying. When you use these phrases, you will also unknowingly you are sure of what you're saying, which is why we make sure to use these phrases. If I find someone making mistakes in the areas you mentioned before, how can I tell them politely to change that method or habit? You can, so you know the sandwich method, right? You can say what you're saying makes sense, but I think if you say it this way, it might have more of an impact, you know? If you say it like that, it doesn't sound very impolite. In a group project, how to approach the solution first and give my opinion on the topic. You can say, based on my knowledge, I feel like this approach will work better, right? No, I guess or I think. Based on the knowledge that I have and whatever experience that I have, I think this will not. I think I recommend this approach. It will work better. Okay, always put the make them remember that you are someone who has this knowledge. You know what you're talking about, and then put forth your opinion. So that way, they will also listen to you more, seriously. How knowledge can improve communication. Like how you acquire knowledge, you also have to acquire the skill to communicate, right? It goes side by side, hand in hand. Okay, just 1 second. Yes, I'm sorry about that. Yes, how knowledge can improve communication. Like I said, acquiring knowledge is another process, and how you can communicate is also another process. These two together will work in your favor. So I don't know if I answered your question, but this is what I understood from the statement that you have made, Biplab. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. What's your advice on handling nervousness or anxiety before public speaking? Practice, practice, practice. When you are sure about what you are speaking, you will not be as nervous as you think you might be. Keep practicing. Practice in front of the mirror. Practice with a friend. Practice alone. Just be sure of what you are going to talk about because you have mentioned public speaking. When you practice, you will be confident. Most people think that it's very easy for you to say just practice, but honestly, that is the answer to your question. The more you practice, the less nervous you get. So keep practicing, especially in front of a mirror. So you know how you seem like to the other person or the other people who are the audience, right? So try to practice in front of a mirror so you know you can build your confidence that way. We're in an interview call. Background should be blur. Is it mandatory? Depends. I mean, if your background you think is something that's inappropriate for the interview, then blur it. If you're okay with if it's just a plain background, then you don't need to blur it. As you mentioned before, smiling does change the tone, but is it really? It's not required all the time, no? When you are talking about something serious, it's not required. It depends on what you are trying to convey. If you want the other person to feel like you are approachable, then you smile. Otherwise, you don't have to smile. You don't, it's not necessary to smile all the time. Can you suggest any books or resources to continue improving communication skills? YouTube is the best because over there you can see the person talking as well. So there are some YouTubers who really work on this. All you need to do is look for communication skills and how to improve them. All the suggestions that appear are quite helpful. So I would recommend videos because you can also see the person. Reading is different from seeing the person, right? So YouTube videos are a very good way to learn communication skills. Okay, I think we have reached the end of the session and also questions are done. So I'm hoping all of you learned something from this session. Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Kavisa. So I think we're done for today. Thank you so much for staying with me for the entire session. I will see you all soon. Okay, good night, everyone. Bye bye.